Here we get ready to go. Go live. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sharon Porter with Enlivian. We are all about redefining housing and serving the most vulnerable families in Charlotte. And today for our Lunch and Learn chat series, we have Mr. Josh Proby with the NAACP. He is chair of the Criminal Justice Department. Josh, today we are here to talk about the NAACP. Oh yeah, please turn that down. Thank you. We're here to talk about what the NAACP is doing. Today is the last day to register to vote. What's the NAACP doing to help people get out to vote?
The NAACP, we've done numerous things to get out and vote. The woke vote, which will be out tomorrow, so where so many different artists came out, and we had so many people come out to be able to get people to understand the importance, especially in this election. So we've been on the ground, different areas. We had the My Vote Has Purpose, to where we went to Betty's Ford Road. We were on Sugar Creek as well as Greertown, which make up some of the lower turnout for those who are registered, as well as a low turnout of actually going to the polls. So we actually went there, gave food out, had music, just to have a celebration of understanding the importance of our voice. So the NAACP has been on the ground in numerous areas within Charlotte to make sure that individuals are getting the information, making sure individuals understand why they're voting, who they're voting for is totally up to them. But at the end of the day, it's still a fact that we need to know that you guys are informed. And that's the biggest thing that us as the NAACP are doing, getting out there and making sure that our people are informed.
That's great. And because you're specifically targeting communities that have low voter turnout. And that's why we're here today. So let's talk about, you have this campaign called My Vote Has Purpose. That's something I believe you started. You've got the t-shirt on. You want to share everybody your t-shirt?
Yeah, My Vote Has Purpose.
So tell me how you started the My Vote Has Purpose.
My Vote Has Purpose, it came up a while back. It was during the time that I was incarcerated. I had always had a vision of different things that I wanted to carry out once I was released. And it just so happened that with Matt, I was able to sit down with the President, Kareem Mack, and he gave me an opportunity to meet with the criminal justice and to be able to bring My Vote Has Purpose and kind of put it together with her woke vote, which comes out on the 10th. And we put it together, and ever since then, we've had so many people come together and participate in this opportunity for individuals to get registered. I think we registered, almost Matt has registered thousands over her time. He's a professional at it. And this being my first event actually getting out. And I think that we had 15 to 20 people who weren't registered are now registered. And of course, that's not the hundreds, or that's not the thousands, but the fact that in these type of elections, it comes down to one or two votes sometimes. So those 20 individuals are individuals who have never registered, who have never voted before, and it was just a blessing to be able to get those individuals out and get involved in this process.
You said something very important, and that is that you touched on it at least, that there are people who have maybe felony backgrounds who don't believe they can vote, but they can actually vote. What should people know, particularly those who have backgrounds? What should they know about the ability to vote?
They should know that they can vote, regardless of whether they're a felon or not. As long as their restitutions are paid and they're not on papers, they can actually vote. Also, if you are incarcerated with a misdemeanor, you can vote. So these are different things that individuals just don't know or not informed, and automatically, based on how the system places things, they make you feel like you're obsolete, or they make you feel like your voice doesn't matter. And this is my first year of voting, so I'm excited. I got my registration card, so I'm super excited about being able to get out and allow my vote to have purpose, because whether the individual in which that I vote for wins or not,
Right.
your vote has purpose because of what you stand for in your community, what you stand for your children, what you stand for your culture. So at the end of the day, your vote is always going to have purpose because your voice does. So whether the person in which that you are shooting to win doesn't win, it still doesn't stop your vote from having a purpose.
Absolutely. So I want to tell anyone who's watching that we are taking questions, and right now we have a question here. Do you know how we can track early voting, or is probably the best way to just kind of watch with everyone else, or how do we think early voting is going to go?
Early voting is going good, as they said in the election. There's millions of people voting now. I would say in Charlotte, go down to the Board of Elections to get an understanding of where this early vote process is at. You also can go to some of the early voting polls that are out, and then you can kind of candidly ask those individuals, hey, how's the turnout? Hey, how's things going? Engage in conversation to get an understanding of exactly what locations are doing and how the process is going in this early voting stage.
I think it's important to note that early voting in North Carolina begins October 15th through October 31st. Today, however, for everyone watching, today is the last day to register to vote in the state of North Carolina, but just next week we can start voting. Josh, you have been a part of a lot of protests. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of the protests have been sort of seen or viewed or tried to be perpetuated as violent and things like that. Tell me what you're seeing from the protests that you've participated in, the marches, the demonstrations, and what do you think the energy is amongst young people towards voting right now?
They're involved. They're very engaged. This generation, I don't like to call myself old. I think I'm still in there a little bit, you know. but I think as a whole, man, everybody's involved. Everybody's engaged. People are tired. People are frustrated. People want to see a different type of change. And I think being on the ground and seeing it, I think one of the most impactful things about watching some of the leaders who came before us, who paved the way, the influential leaders, Dr. King, Malcolm X, those individuals, they were about change before allowing their emotions to take full control.
Sure. Uh-oh. So it looks like Josh's image has frozen. So this is live, and so this is just what happens when we go live. So we're gonna hope that Josh unfreezes, but I want to, on behalf of Enlivian, remind everyone that today is the last day to register for voting, and it is incredibly important that we do so. It's also important that everyone remember that it's just not about the presidential election. It is also about your local elections. It's about getting involved at the local level. That's what we need everyone to do, to get involved, to make sure your voice is heard. I understand that we have a lot of folks who are apathetic, and it's understandable. There are a lot of things that we're seeing that we're not used to seeing in our political landscape. And so we need everyone to step up, to step out, to make sure your voice is heard, because the truth of the matter is that if your voice wasn't important, they wouldn't try so hard to suppress it, right? And so we are seeing so many people become apathetic because there's a lot of negativity around the election process. There's a lot of people saying, oh, they never listen to us. Oh, they don't care about us. They don't think about the little guy. They only think about the people with money. It's a fixed system, right? The truth of the matter is your voice does have power. The truth of the matter is for people who are of Black and brown descent, there are thousands of people, thousands, tens of thousands of people who fought for this right and this opportunity to vote. And we have it, and we should not take it for granted. And so we encourage and we implore everyone to take out, to step out, to vote, to exercise that right. Because again, if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to suppress it. Something else someone else told me as we wait for Josh to come back in here is voting is not a marriage, right? There are a lot of people who are frustrated with maybe their elected official or people who they see in politics. Voting is not a marriage, right? So you're never going to find the perfect candidate who's going to sit there and vote for everything you want, every way you want it, right? That just doesn't exist. But what voting is like your bus. You might say, okay, what do you mean? What does that mean? It's like your bus route. You're going to go with the candidate who's going to get you as closest to you can get to the place you're trying to go to. And then quite frankly, you're going to have to walk the rest of the way. That's what voting is. It is about finding the person, the candidate who's going to connect with the issue, who's going to get you as close as possible. And then you're going to have to walk through the rest of the way. All right, it looks like we have Josh back in here. Josh.
Sorry about that, man. I don't know. Goodness gracious. Sorry about that. So sorry.
Listen, you had me dancing out here. It's okay.
Oh, man.
Come back.
This Zoom, this live, this Wi-Fi.
Listen, it's where we are right now. So again, we were talking about the energy of what we're seeing, particularly with young people. Do you feel, from what you're seeing and from those that you are seeing who are feeling a bit more apathetic, are you seeing a growing sense of people wanting to vote and get involved?
Most definitely. Most definitely. They're wanting to get involved in so many different aspects, so many different ways. They're tired. And I think they truly understand that this is a pivotal point for our communities in getting involved in this election.
Sure.
More so for the welfare of our children, of their children, and for their generation. And I think that they understand that, and they're actually seeing so much negativity that a lot of them just want to see a positive light. So on the ground, we're seeing a lot of youth. Most of the time, they're trying to paint the negative picture on the protest. June 2nd was an amazing turnout, one of the biggest protests that the NAACP put on in the history of Charlotte, and it was peaceful. And individuals were out there. This was following the George Floyd and so many other names. It's kind of hard to say specific names when it's been so many. Without shining the light on all of them collectively. And it didn't matter what race you were, they were out there, and they're definitely involved.
So I'm going to go to a comment we have from Kirsten Lambers Long. Our whole way of life for everyone is going to change. But what I hold on to is God is still in control. Man will fail you every time. Pardon me, everyone. I don't have on my glasses. I look at man that has kept most of his promises and the USA's best interest in mind. I don't want to go backwards with people that have been in power for over 47 years. I think that, thank you, Kirsten. I appreciate that. And so, Kirsten, I'm going to say there are so many people who feel like, you can't put all your hopes in man, but you do have to get out there and do something. And Josh, I have a question for you from someone here. Is the NAACP involved with working phone banks as a partner or individual? Are you encouraging people to call through phone banks?
Yes, we're encouraging all individuals to call. And there's so many different ways to get involved with the NAACP. You can go to the NAACP website. You can call the president in herself. She's very reachable. And even the vice president in Daryl. There's so many different ways to reach out and contact for us to be able to let you know how to specifically get involved in however you want to get involved, because there's never enough hands when we're dealing with voting. There's never enough help that we can't get to be able to go towards the common goal, and the purpose that everybody wants is for their voice to be heard.
Absolutely. So for those folks who want to get in contact with the NAACP, we have the phone number on the screen, which is 704-977-7382. That's 704-977-7382. and their website is www.charlottenaacp.com. Josh, in a conversation I had with you and President Reverend Corrine Mack the other day, you all have a very active youth. And so I understand, like, and so unfortunately, I think there are a lot of NAACP chapters who are they may be challenged with some things with membership and that, but you all are really alive and well. Talk about all the other things that the NAACP is doing.
The NAACP is doing so much from getting out into the communities every single day, seeing what's going on from the Betty Ford area. We have young youth groups such as Kids Fed Up, who are very involved. We have one of the largest chapters at UNCC that is now intact, that is established and continuing to grow and expand. So the NAACP is understanding the importance of engaging the youth and the growth of everything that goes on. Of course, it's the longest standing nonprofit organization to date. So now we're looking at different ways to just create a revitalized culture within the NAACP, making sure that we're out there voting, making sure we're getting out there and we're helping individuals, holding peaceful protesters, holding different officials accountable. And that's one of the major things that Corinne Max teaches, is to be able to teach and understand how to hold individuals accountable from trainings. She hosts trainings, the NAACP does, to understand what your laws are, to understand what to say when officers pull you over. There's so much vital information that is being given by the NAACP that is truly helpful.
That is fantastic. We have another question. Is the NAACP working across state lines to battleground states? So there are chapters all over the country. How are you all working together?
We can aid and assist as far as within the Charlotte branch that we can. Communication and finding other individuals who may be in those branches wherever those battleground states are. But according to national, it's kind of like Charlotte is for Charlotte, Atlanta is for Atlanta,
okay.
New York is for New York, simply because the national standards and what it is. But it doesn't stop us from making those extra phone calls. It doesn't stop us from connecting and using our resources that are in different areas, pulling them together so that we can have the best support and best turnout possible.
Yeah, I think something else that you just said, particularly talking about the vitality and the services and resources that the NAACP brings, I think is exciting, is what to say when we come in contact with police officers. That shouldn't be a life or death scenario, but the reality is for Black and brown people, that is a life and death scenario. And it is not, and let me be very clear, this is not that we're saying that all police officers are like that, but we certainly can't deny that our experience is very different. So can you talk about that service that you all provide to residents and how people can get involved?
As far as with the NAACP?
Or participating, do you all have a class coming up? Are there classes like that?
There are classes that will be either on the Instagram page, or it will either be on the website. But there are conceal and carry classes. There are different information classes as far as understanding your rights. Instead of asking officers for badge numbers, and they respond to you and say, hey, I don't have a badge number. Technically, they're not lying, because according to North Carolina, they have a code. So it's small stuff like that that can escalate, even though officers are supposed to not escalate situations.
And we don't want to escalate a situation. Let's be very clear. I'm not suggesting that officers escalate a situation. I respect that everyone who is going into, I respect that police officers put their life on the line every single day. I'm understanding. I want police officers to come home safely, and I want everyone who comes in contact with police. So I want to be very clear that what we're talking about is that I'm not suggesting that police officers are escalating scenarios.
Right. Most definitely. That's definitely true as well. And just making sure that you know what to say, making sure that you know the proper approaches in things that happen, because I'm a convicted felon, was a convicted felon. I'm a productive man of society today, and to be honest, that's something that I deal with every single time. You know, if I'm driving and I get pulled over, the first thing that officer is going to see is my record. You know, so that's kind of like not necessarily who I am today, the father, the author, the speaker, the chair. They don't see all of that. All they see is what comes on that computer. So we have to still understand and know that even with that being a reality, we're trying our best within the community to bridge gaps. And that starts with relationship. And I think that's what the NAACP understands, the importance of relationship.
That's wonderful. So once again, as we wrap up here, I want to remind everyone how they can get in contact with the NAACP. You can even, you can call 704-977-7382. You can go to www.charlottenaacp.com. I think that's where you can also find and purchase Josh's t-shirt. That your vote has purpose. That is their campaign. You can also follow them on social media. NAACP CHA MEC on Facebook, on Twitter, Charlotte NAACP1, and on Instagram, Charlotte_NAACP. Josh, I want to thank you for joining us today, for sharing that information. I want to remind everyone that today is your last day to register to vote in North Carolina, and that early voting begins October 15th. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please send Reverend Corrine Mack our wishes. That's a beautiful lady that's heading up a very important organization in our city and in our country.
Most definitely. Thank you, guys. We truly appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Have a safe day, okay?
All right.
Bye-bye.